The HiPipo Chronicles, we are still talking about 2009, and the HiPipo Chronicles, in case you're joining at the moment, this is a podcast series that is looking at the journey of HiPipo from all the way in 2005, and now currently we are in 2009. So in case you're joining in right now, you need to probably go back and catch up so that you can catch up with us in 2009. This is the second episode of 2009, and we are looking at what later happened, because we talked about migrating music onto digital rails in the first episode of 2009. So now we are going to be talking about playlisting and doing cross-border work with amazing musicians that were across East Africa. But to do that, on the HiPipo Chronicles, we get to do this with the CEO of HiPipo, Innocent Kawooya. Once again, happy to do this again this week.
Thank you, Mark. It's such a privilege and honor for myself.
Yes.
And I'm sure for the folks, the colleagues that kickstarted this conversation in 2005.
Yeah.
To actually be at this point where we can discuss real impact that has happened over time. Yeah. I mean, there are so many stories that come out and appear in the news, papers, TV, radio. But there is one that many will have to tell over time.
Yeah.
One of very many amazing stories that grew from internet without not so much support of TV, print, and radio. Traditional radio. And one of those is HiPipo.
Yes.
Of course, we'll talk about eJazz Radio as well as a very amazing one. I mean, many times when I tell people about eJazz Radio, they're like, on what frequency is it? And I'm like, you're still locked to that.
Yeah.
You're talking to a digital person, and I'm telling you about radio. But yes, very excited to be here, and thank you for always making time to host us here.
Definitely.
Yeah,
it's always good, to talk about the journey of some of the products that probably people see and interact with in different ways. Because just like how we talked about at the start, some people might know HiPipo from the music.
Yeah.
Over the weekend when we were playing football, someone said, "Oh, these are the guys that do a HiPipo Music Awards." I'm like, "Yep." So that's the interaction with them on that.
Someone told you something like that.
Yeah.
Did you buy him water?
They definitely got water when we were playing football, so it works out.
Yeah.
So we talked about, earlier on in the first episode of 2009, we talked about onboarding onto digital rails, and that's for musicians. And this is all the way after making websites for them and trying to show them that there is more that you can do with their music on the internet.
Yes.
So now it gets to a point where there is an experience for how people can listen to music.
Yeah.
So now there's playlisting, which is a big deal even at the moment, though it's now different with digital streaming platforms and all that.
Yeah.
But it still was the same idea in 2009, which is we need to make a selection of music that people can go on and listen to and enjoy. First, how does the idea come up of transitioning into creating something like a playlist for people to enjoy and experience music?
Thank you, Mark. Well, I want to first take us back to the power of connecting with communities.
Yes.
So you just mentioned about someone when we were playing football over the weekend that was curious to connect the story of the music awards, and the same HiPipo has been the same HiPipo transforming so many sectors in small ways that are very, very impactful for a long period of time. So we talked about creating the first ever social entertainment platform. And what we have is a lot of local music, a lot of local endorsement and agreements from producers, video directors, and the musicians themselves, handing over music to us. And many of them channeling their music through Bigo FX that time, who was probably the most influential music distributor.
Yes.
And maybe to take back so many people to the story of HiPipo doing social entertainment and demonstrating the transformative capacity of internet and digitization through different industries, one of them being music. So we want to solve one of the biggest problems then, distribution.
Yes.
I mean, today someone sends a song to eJazz Radio and you receive it, and it is in 100 and plus. How many countries are in the world? I'm not
I know there are more than 100. Because Africa alone has already 50 something. We are coming close to 60.
So both of us can fail that question.
That question, when we look at 100.
When our children begin asking us, Papa, how many countries are in the world?
Yeah,
Are there 189? Maybe you could Google, but I think I'm so close. At least I know that Australia is a continent.
Yeah.
And I know there is Asia, there is Europe, there is South America, North America, and there is the Great Africa.
Yes.
I know at least for that case, but I don't know how many countries. But distribution of music was quite a big problem. And we're not talking about cross-border distribution. We're talking about local distribution.
Actually, we're close. It's 195.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know it. Thank God. So for many reasons, we are saying for music to go back to my hometown, which is a city now, to Massachusetts, Massacre. For music to get there, it takes either someone has to get a CD or a flash disk or a hard drive and get it on a taxi or drive there. So it takes you more than 2 hours to get there when someone is driving so fast. Otherwise, no one can get music there within. And no radio station could get music that way. And up to today, even when we propose to government to create the first ever national music or content distribution infrastructure that could allow any player, whether they are radio stations, TVs, local players, whichever medium, to access content. Even up now, it hasn't been created. Yet we proposed this in 2009. So we're saying, okay, can we create something that can create some appetite for people to consume this kind of content, for people to consume the music, and then to promote Uganda music to the people in the diaspora. See, it is very hard for someone to just look out for a song, play one, and then look for another when they don't know the musician.
Yeah.
So we decided to create a kind of fan pages for every musician we had profiled by then. And there were hundreds. By then we had about 250 something musicians from across East Africa that profiled. So we said, first of all, we're going to create playlists based on artists. So fans subscribe to it and they can play the music all day long. I remember Bebe Cool already had more than 100 and something songs by that time. He had the biggest number of songs, him and Chameleon. But then we had many other musicians with a lot of music.
Yeah.
But then the demand for music, even for the likes of the late Herman Basude, was very high. The likes of the late Eddie Wamala was very high. So like how people don't know the titles. So it can be very easy for them to actually play this music one by one. But also, it is not good for us to have good traffic. I mean, for those who are doing commercial YouTube that are monetizing YouTube, they know how important it is to have playtime.
Yeah.
But I mean, we are aggregating ourselves. It is a very good joy for us to see someone play music on HiPipo for a whole hour. So we create the playlists. They are artist-centric, some are genre-centric, some are based on charts.
Yeah.
So there's a playlist that is based on the weekly charts. Some are based on an algorithm that we are creating and we're testing it and to see whether it works, whether we can have real-time charts like the great Billboard charts. So we create the charts, the playlist, and see what we get. Traction.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we want to promote HiPipo across the borders of Uganda. We had been in so many countries already, but we didn't have a personalized relationship with people and players. So we established a HiPipo Kenya arm. I told you about how hard it was and how expensive it was to get music from Tanzania.
Yeah. You have to pay, then they put it on the bus. Then it's
you pay 200,000
and
shillings.
They give you probably 5 songs, 10 songs.
Exactly, they give you 5 songs.
Yeah.
It was hard for literally everyone, whether it was the distributors like Bigo, it was still hard for them. So you can imagine how hard it was for people who are in the diaspora. And because most of the traffic was coming from Europe and America, and some of it coming from India, we decided to make sure we create favorite playlists that would allow people to consume more of local content. And the magic worked. I know, Mark, you speak to a lot of people that live in the diaspora, Ugandans and other Africans, and some that are actually not African, but they're connected to us, maybe because they have partners that came from Africa.
Yeah.
and they so much listened to HiPipo. And then so many people's eyes were opened as a result of the things that we were doing by that time, creating an appetite for our content. And Nigerians, I'm sure, picked a lot of examples from what we were doing and decided to commercialize what we were doing.
Yeah, and it even works for them. When they see that initiative, that there's already a platform where music is already centered for, they're always opening up markets and saying, oh, we also need to have something over there, or we have something like that over here. And
yeah, exactly. So I mean, someone told me in 2019, I think it was the 5th or the 4th of December 2019. Someone told me, Andrew, a friend of mine, told me that in Europe alone, there are a minimum of 40 million Africans that live there.
The ones that are in the diaspora.
Yeah, that are in the diaspora and are legally existing. So I don't know those who are there and nobody knows them.
No, undocumented.
Undocumented. And I mean, they're all there, and one of the things they have to go back to is either content like film,
music,
from their home, and music.
Yes.
So HiPipo was at the center of making sure that they have something that gives them hope, that connects them with people back home and makes them believe in the little big dreams that they had and keep going.
Yeah.
No matter how hard or how easy it was for whatever case they were going through. So the playlist became that kind of thing and an enabler for growth across the borders. Before we knew, we had DJs, the likes of folks that were working with Ogopa DJ, DJ Apeman, came in later. I mean, the number of people that came in, a number of DJs, and they wanted us to have their mixes playing on the playlist.
Yeah.
So before we knew, we had created playlists that are for DJs. So you have a mix of an hour, of 2 hours, and that, I think, mesmerized so many people. And I think it created a lot of vibe around the HiPipo brand, and also kept our dream going. I mean, when we're talking about all these things, we were not making any money all this time.
At that point,
we were populating so many things like galleries for musicians, because there was no content literally for musicians anywhere. So around that same year, we were saying, okay, what more can we do to make sure we accelerate the vibe? I mean, we are having this question. I mean, it was the hardest question for me to answer every day, but I kept on believing God and telling people we are going to become commercially viable. If you keep believing, I mean, whoever was pumping their money in the initiative, and I mean, someone is saying, but are these things really useful? Yeah, I'm like, no, give us some little time. Little did I know that the time was going to be maybe about 14 years of working. I mean, so some bits of that and so much progress around that kind of conversation.
And one thing that people don't get is that when you talk about playlisting and creating artist playlists, this is what they don't get. Right now, those that are probably interacting with streaming platforms at the moment, you go to probably Spotify, you Google an artist, let's say Bebe Cool, and then you'll see Bebe Cool Radio, where they have only Bebe Cool songs art. It's the same initiative that was happening back then. Streaming was the big deal, was the only way people would consume music at the time, but people didn't see it as a viable option easily at the time, or it is lack of knowledge because they don't see anything else that was looking like it. And especially now if you're doing it for an East African market where we don't have any other entertainment site that is providing this alternative, it makes it hard for people. I'm trying to paint a picture of what was happening then is what you're actually enjoying at the moment with Spotify, with the Apple Music, with Deezer, with all these Boomplay, all these other streaming platforms. It's the same thing. It's just that at the time, and I see artists, this is what is very unfortunate. I see artists praising a lot of what Spotify does. My numbers on Spotify, my numbers on Apple Music, I'm trending on these charts. But it's the same initiative that was happening back then because the people that were streaming this music.
Exactly.
And that's the same analogy that these streaming platforms are using. But it's because at the time, probably you thought, oh, it's our Ugandan stuff, I don't know. But then now you're going back to the same thing and paying to access it and paying me a lot of money to make sure that you're on the playlist that are by the editorial team at either Spotify or Apple Music. So once again, you need to pay attention whenever there are new innovations that come up.
You know, Mark, when you mentioned, the playlists were powered by HiPipo Radio by that time. So the whole initiative was creating a a virtual radio, and then the playlists were the content really.
Yes.
And like you mentioned rightly about folks that have really made big progress, like Spotify and Apple. It was specifically as simple as that. It was you go to Bebeku Radio,
And
to
listen
Victor
to Bebeku.
Kamenyo Radio,
Yes.
to Afandemia Radio. I mean, that was exactly what was happening in any kind of way. And we were saying, can we customize this? When they have radio, can we create these profiles, customize them with their photos, customize them with news about them, and then also make sure that we create a Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania collaboration of synchronizing this information such that when someone Ugandan watches something Kenyan, they can be able to find something next from Kenya, the next thing they find something from Rwanda, and all that kind of stuff. And it was all driven towards making sure that at the end of the day, what we call our own content gets a leeway to the broader international market. And secondly, because part of the biggest challenges then was that we were really limited in the number of markets and that were accessing internet locally.
Yes.
So we were saying, let's create a way for everyone to access the bigger markets. Europe was already booming using internet. It was very affordable already in Europe. I don't know how affordable it is right now, because by then they were already affording internet. You could have internet for 16 euros for a whole month. Very fast internet, and 6 people can connect to the same connection. So we were saying, can we demonstrate this, show them what can happen? Like I told you, we had challenges with our hosting, our content delivery networks. Our servers were very expensive. So much as we were hosting this music and having authorization from many of the musicians, it was so costly for us as well. So as times changed, we had to begin dropping up some of these things. I mean, we had to begin virtually hosting some of this content. We find a place where we can host some of this music, and it is lighter on our servers, then host it there, and then integrate the playlist on this kind. I mean, the word in web technology is more of embedding.
Embedding, yes.
But the fact that I'm over working in a financial technology space, so integration now speaks a lot of times.
You embed.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of that was happening, but I thank God that the biggest goal was to say, can we help our creatives have access to knowledge and tools that can help them reach broader markets? And if you ask me, Mark, did you achieve the goal? Yes, we did.
Yeah, but I think even people, I know when they listen and they're trying to give us feedback at the time. This is 2009 that we are talking about. I know you probably had interactions with that, because that's the only place you would get music, and that's the only place you would get photos of artists if you wanted to get their photos, because you had galleries, you had profiles of the artists, the bios would be all got from that.
Everything.
And the music too. And that was, at the time, it was the only player in the market serving the artists at the time. And people that probably got to interact, that you can send us some of your feedback on HiPipo across all social media platforms. That is at HiPipo, right? And we shall, as we continue to talk more about 2009, because we still have more of what took place in 2009 on this podcast. But what are some of the takeaways in 2009? Some of the lessons?
2009, we ended the year in some bit of building hope and victory. So we organized a big Christmas campaign, the first ever Merry Christmas digital campaign in this land and around East Africa, celebrating great milestones of having millions of views of listens or to playlists and the music that was on the site. Of course, not making any money from it, but celebrating the fact that we had gotten our content listened to by so many people across the world. So we learned that we could actually do a lot of things in a small way by that time, but we decided to celebrate the success we had achieved at the time, and also resolved on making sure that we got even more legal with collaborating with every kind of artist, because there was a lot of trouble that was coming around that time from YouTube, and a lot of tears.
we're yet to come.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's very interesting, and it's by the way, it's a good point to let you know that probably to get more you have to listen to the next podcast. Okay, so because we're getting into aggregating music, we shall talk about that. And that is on the HiPipo Chronicles. Get more of the podcast where you got this, and reach out to us at HiPipo, that is across all social media platforms, and find out about aggregating music next, because that's a big topic even today in 2023.